Hi folks, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me. You are most welcome as always. Well, today I thought this was very good timing. We have got just in time for the 80th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, which of course was December the 7th, 1941. We have got the brand new Tora 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 release from Eduard. This is a completely new tooling. It's 1/48 Mitsubishi Zero A6-M2, and it is depicted in the kit. They've actually made it a limited edition, just got it out in time, haven't they, because this has just arrived in the nick of time. And it's the attack on Pearl Harbor colours. It's from it's not one from every one of the carriers, but most of the carriers that took part, there's actually 8 different options included in the kit, so this is going to be really something special. So just a refresher for those of you that have maybe lived on a different planet or under a rock or something for all time. So the Second World War was really a conflict between the Allies at the time, not including the United States, who kept out of the war, against Germany, but kind of gave support to Britain and her allies over in Western Europe. And it only you can argue it became a world war truly when the Japanese, who were in agreement with they became the Axis powers, in agreement with Italy and Germany, Nazi Germany. And essentially they had this deal whereby they wanted to leave the Germans to Europe. They weren't interested in that, but they wanted to have a much greater Japanese empire in the Pacific, and especially around places like the Philippines and Burma, what is now Vietnam, and Thailand and countries like that. So they were pursuing this. They invaded Singapore, attacked Singapore, and they were attacking various islands in the Pacific. But the problem that the Japanese had was that they were already raising suspicions that they were clearly on a war footing, and the Americans put them on embargo for things like oil and gas and steel, which they use a lot of American steel in their Japanese fighters, like the Zero, for example. And it became obvious to the Japanese that if they wanted to continue this sort of conquest trail, they didn't want to actually invade America, I don't believe, at that time. They just wanted the Pacific to become their empire, like the British had done before them. And essentially they decided to take it by force. They knew that once they were on this embargo that time was very limited, and Isuro Yamamoto, the Japanese supreme commander of the Japanese Navy, was tasked with trying to knock out the Americans in the Pacific to make them, he thought, sue for peace. Now you can understand, in fairness, at the time why. I've watched these movies and read books and things about this. I'm not an expert on this subject by any stretch of the imagination. It's not my strongest subject on history, but I've always believed that the Japanese were kind of crazy, and it was a bit of a suicide mission in some respects for them. However, if you think about the politics at that time in the United States, it was very isolationist, and the Americans did not want to be involved in this war with Europe and the Nazis, thought it wasn't their problem. And I think the Japanese read into this and thought they're not going to do anything. But what they underestimated, of course, is not only America's industrial might and their resolve as a nation, but they also misread it, I think. And by attacking them in such an underhanded way, I think that they almost made this pacifism is probably too strong a word, but this non-interventionist feeling in America, which was dominant at the time. They didn't want to get into war. They weren't interested. Things were good in America. The Depression had gone and things were looking up. But that was just swept away overnight. When they attacked Pearl Harbor, attitudes just instantly changed overnight, and it was so brutal and so underhanded and so nasty in the way it was done, without warning, and then they declared war on them 6 hours later and all this kind of thing. Bad communication, bad faith, it was done in a very considered to be a very unsporting way, and this is what filled America with resolve. And of course, as Yamamoto himself said, allegedly, there's argument about whether he said these exact words, but he basically did feel that everybody seems to agree that it was certainly his feeling that unless they could win a very quick war against the United States, this was only going to end badly for Japan, which of course it did, very badly, with nuclear bombs, atomic bombs going off all over the southern half of the country. But he did say, allegedly, that all we have managed to do, even though they were totally successful, we'll come into the bit more detail in a minute. He said, all we've really managed to do, whilst we've won the battle, I think this is what he was saying, we've won the battle but we've lost the war, because we've filled America with this great resolve. We've awoken a sleeping giant, is what he said, allegedly. And this was certainly the feeling he had. It was a dangerous thing they'd done, and unless they were able to have quick victory, they were doomed. And of course, they didn't get the American carriers at Pearl Harbor, which were the most critical ships of all. And that came back to really bite them in the backside. The following summer, not long later really, only 7 months later, in June 42, the Battle of Midway, everything changed. And due to some cleverness on the part of the Americans, dogged determination, and also some luck, they caught the Japanese carriers just as they were, and they've been attacking Midway Island, and they were rearming with bombs when they actually needed to be arming with torpedoes, and the Americans caught them napping and sunk 3, I think, of the 4 carriers that they had there. So anyway, I'm digressing and going on into history, but everything turned 6 months later. So Yamamoto was quite right that he only had this 6 months to a year to beat the Americans, and he failed to do that, and the rest is history, as they say. Anyway, let's get back to Pearl Harbor, where it all started, the genesis of this terrible conflict. Brought America into the war, of course, and then it was a world war. There's a story I was watching 2 things recently which are very interesting. There's a documentary that was on British television last week on Channel 5, and it was all about Pearl Harbor, minute by minute it was called. And the 2 things I learned on there, one was the reaction of Winston Churchill, who always suspected the Japanese were intending to make war on America. And the night, it was in the evening, UK time, that he was told Pearl Harbor had been attacked. And he said that the next day, he said that I slept very well last night, which sounds a strange comment, but when you understand the background, it's not so strange, because he said, because I now know America will be in the war, and there will be only one outcome, a positive outcome for the world. And he was obviously a guy fighting the wickedest empire and the Nazis on his own, basically, with a few small allies. But Britain was completely alone, and this changed everything. So although Pearl Harbor was a horrible and despicable crime, you could almost call it, really, a nasty, premeditated, unprovoked attack on the USA at Hawaii, it did have the effect of taking away this danger that the world could be, subsumed by the Nazis, and that America then, Adolf Hitler declared war on America the next day, would you believe, which was the stupidest thing he ever did, but anyway, one of many. But and then of course that was it. It was then the Axis powers versus the Allies, and then we went forward together and we won the war. I think actually for Japan, in many respects, it was a very painful war, especially the way it ended. Yeah. But I think longer term, since the long-term history of Japan, it's not been a bad thing for the Japanese. I think that the Americans helped to rebuild them and modernise them very quickly, and they ended up being this powerhouse of engineering and technology, as we all know today. So it wasn't really such a bad thing in the end, but a very painful gestation, let's call it. Anyway, back to Tora Tora Tora, which of course is named after the very best movie about Pearl Harbor, and don't let anybody tell you differently. If you haven't seen Tora Tora Tora, you must, because it tries to, in almost documentary form, people accused it of being quite a boring film when it came out, because there's a lot of lead up to what actually happens, but it documents how this terrible situation occurred and what the circumstances leading up to it were, and I think it's an absolute classic. And there's also some stunt work and effects in there that are not CGI, nothing to do with computers, everything's done for real. And there's 1 or 2 scenes where things go wrong and were nearly fatal accidents, but people survived. But the explosions and some of the choreography of the aircraft, several of them went wrong. Several men are seen looking like they're running for their lives, because they were. Anyway, especially on the airfield scene, so you've definitely got to see that movie. And that's Tora Tora Tora, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is allegedly, there's some argument about this came up in the documentary as well, that was supposed to be the call sign to announce that when they arrived over the Oahu Island, over Pearl Harbor, that they had achieved surprise and there was no impediment to them beginning the attack, and that was the call sign, Tora Tora Tora, which basically means all clear, we have the element of surprise, go for it, you know. And the other thing, sorry, I mentioned there was a couple of things from the documentary. The other thing I noticed, which I didn't know anything about, and this was quite harrowing actually, was when the Americans' ships in just off Ford Island, where all the battleship row was, where they were moored, where they were attacked initially by these, obviously the Oklahoma was hit by I think 3 torpedoes and capsized, and many men died horribly, you know, in flames and in oil and in drowning. The thing turned turtle and they were trapped. Horrible deaths. 2,400 people died, including quite a few civilians, because the Arizona was sunk and is now a memorial because they couldn't shift it. But there was also lots of civilians were killed, and one of the images it showed in this documentary, which I'd never heard about before, was that the American servicemen who went to battle stations to fire the anti-aircraft, and of course as each wave, and there were supposed to be 3 waves of aircraft, in the end there was only 2, I'll come to that later, but they were getting, the initial surprise was devastating, but then when the second wave came in they had time to prepare for it, and they were much more efficient, and they were firing anti-aircraft, and the Americans had the best anti-aircraft cover shielding, if you like, on their ships of any navy in the world, even better than the Brits did. A lot of anti-aircraft guns, and they were firing this stuff all over the place. Well, some of it was landing in the civilian areas of downtown Oahu. There was a picture of a guy and his family, I think it was, who was driving a big car, I think it was a Buick or something like that, absolutely riddled with bullets, and this guy is dead, slumped at the wheel, and his wife, and I think maybe one of his children, I think, was also killed in the back of this car, and the whole area was blitzed with all these falling bullets. They weren't fired at directly, they were the bullets falling from across the other side, from near Ford Island, where they were shooting up into the air, and some of it was firing inland and landing in the residential area. So a lot of fires were started by this as well. So it was a terrifying, you know, conflagration. Not somewhere you wanted to be, you know. Just keeping in your house probably wasn't going to be enough for your safety, because there's going to be all this artillery and hot metal flying around all over the place, and it went on for hours, of course. So in terms of the waves, the first wave achieved complete surprise, the second wave, as I've just mentioned, didn't, and this is where the Japanese admiral on the spot decided not to continue and have the third and final wave. He didn't let them go, and they were of course supposed to destroy all the repair shops and the oil refineries and the storage facilities and the dry docks. And if they destroyed the dry docks, it would have made it much harder for the US Navy to have repaired these ships, and they repaired. I think it was 17 ships were basically badly damaged, and 14 of them went back to sea. So that tells you how effective that the US Navy were at repairing quickly. And that was all within 4 to 6 months they were back at sea, most of those ships. Amazing feat of engineering, really, and sheer determination and effort. And I always felt, when you watch the movies like Tora Tora Tora, and you think, oh, that was a mistake, you know, forgetting the sides and whose side you're on and all the politics of it. But as a strategic military leader, you think you should have finished the job. But actually, now, having watched this documentary and read a few more things, I think he absolutely was right. The Japanese admiral decided not to send in the final wave because it was like a law of diminishing returns, and the first wave I think only lost about 18 planes, the second wave lost something like 30 odd, and you could see it was exponentially going up, and the damage they were inflicting versus the fact that the Americans were now ready and waiting, it became much more difficult to fly around this area without having huge losses. Anyway, let's get into the Eduard kit. Now, elephant in the room, I must say, right at the beginning here. Those of you that watch my channel and know me will know that I'd complain about Eduard. I've not had a lot of Eduard kits, to be fair to them. I'm always incredibly impressed by their sort of engineering and attention to detail, but I have previously found that some of their kits just don't go together that well, I have to be honest. The Mirage 3 was awful, Tempest wasn't much better, so a few problems, and now of course they've come out with this new range of decals which seem to have this film on the top, and they're a little bit complicated to use and very unfamiliar to most of the modelers. can be made to work, but they don't give you a lot of information about how to get the best out of them. So Eduard and I have had a rather tricky relationship, and I really genuinely want this to end. I want them to produce something I think is really good and gets a high rating, and I don't think they've ever managed more than about a 7 out of 10 from me, because I kind of don't trust them in a way. I think it holds me back in giving a positive review, and having had build experiences that were fairly bad, it makes me very, very sceptical. But let's hope today that's going to change. We shall see, we shall see. I'm keeping an open mind. Now this is a limited edition dual combo, so we have 2 zeros in here, allegedly. Let's have a look at what we got, and I'll zoom you in. So, on the side, first of all, I'm going to put some more lights on the second. I'll put the lights on once I've got off the glossy card. We have got 8 options, which is brilliant. I'm all for this. This looks great. So we've got, and I won't try and, I can pronounce some of these ships, but I can't pronounce the various Japanese names, so I'm not going to butcher them by trying. But we've got one from the Akagi Fighter Squadron, and this is from the first attack wave. Then we have a second one, and this is from the Shokaku, and I know that is the correct pronunciation. That's also the first attack wave, so these go in simultaneously. Then we have a Kaga Fighter Squadron, again the first attack wave, so that's the third carrier. And then the Zuikaku Fighter Squadron, that's the first attack wave. So that's 4 of the carriers already. And then we've got the Soryu Fighter Squadron, the first attack wave. And the Zuikaku Fighter Squadron, first attack wave again. So that's another one from Zuikaku. So we've got 2 from Zuikaku, Soryu, Kaga, Shokaku, Akagi. So that's 5 of the 6, is that right? 5 of the 6 I think we've got there. And then we've got the Hiryu Fighter Squadron, first attack wave here. And then the Akagi again, second attack wave. So that's a much riskier mission, because they're going to get more anti-aircraft fire. But there we go. Kit number is treble 155. For those of you that are interested in this kit, and I'm sure many of you, especially in the States, will be very interested in this one. I have to be honest. The reason I went for this particular kit, and the reason I was so quick off the mark with it, is I've always been interested by the Pearl Harbor story, and you'll see in the background, I'm sure you're all looking over my shoulder, because we had the last year I did the final countdown review, and which was partly a kit review of the Tamiya F-14A Tomcat, which was fantastic, and the final countdown movie, which I really like. I have to say, I'll put a link at the end of this. You can go and see that video, and of course this is the one where, don't want to go too down back, I'm not going to repeat myself, but it's basically a science fiction film where this aircraft carrier goes back in time and has the opportunity to stop the Pearl Harbor attack, but things don't go quite as planned. Anyway, yeah, so I mentioned that because it's kind of relevant. I haven't got, though, a Zero fighter, and this is why I was so keen on having this Eduard kit and getting into it as soon as possible, as soon as it arrives. So here we are. I think I might be one of the first in the UK to get my hands on one, but let's have a look. On the other side of that 8 ship, we have got, well, I think we've actually got more. We've got more, so there's actually 12 options, not 8 like I said. I didn't realise they put one on the other side. Okay, this is absolutely incredible. Now then, so you can see here we've got the Kaga Fighter Squadron second attack wave, Hiryu Squadron second attack wave, Soryu second attack wave, and one that's on patrol from the Shokaku on the patrol during the second attack wave. So that one is obviously like a combat air patrol, probably watching out for any P-40 Warhawks coming up to defend Pearl Harbor and Hickam Field and Bellows Field, etc. Around Oahu. So let's have a look at what's in the box. We'll put some more light on so you can see it nice and clear. Oh, by the way, it's got a nice easy opening box this time, not taped or anything. So let's pop that out there gently. And of course we've got 2 kits in here, so 2 zeros with all your money. This retailed in the UK for about £50. And we've got all sorts of stuff here. We've got several different bags. What looks like a nice limited edition instructions. We've got some PE. Oh yes, it's all looking very good. Masking set. So it's a complete set, this one. I don't think there's any resin, but we'll see. Now then, that is the decals. Now that's the one thing I've got reservations about. But we'll get to that. First things first. Let's remove the final countdown. Maybe we're not again, not till tonight, right? Alright, let's have a look at this. Now, I have to say, a lot of you have been watching recent videos. I've done reviews. A lot of you will be familiar with my views on instructions, because I think that we almost have manufacturers of kits at the moment divided into two camps. The ones that can be bothered and the ones that can't be bothered. And I'm not going to just repeat myself and rant on, because it feels like a record that's been left playing to repeat itself. But I don't think that a lot of the Far Eastern manufacturers, especially in China, are doing a very good job of this now. We've had ICM, they've been doing a great job. And you've got obviously Tamiya doing it very well. Airfix quite good to a lesser degree, because I don't think they make enough effort on the history side of it. But some of these quite expensive kits from the Far East are just not doing this properly. But let's see what Eduard have got. I think this might be okay. So it's the limited edition dual convo. Let's bring you right in. Nice bit of artwork. You can see Ford Island under attack in the background. Battleship Row. What have we got? Oh wow. Oh wow, we've got more than I was anticipating. Limited edition, and they've got a complete... Now this is exactly what I've just been talking about. But this is a positive story. This is exactly what we've been asking for. Something that, where they make a bit more effort. Please, come on. Wingnut Wings used to do this brilliantly, and looks like to me we've got an attempt here that's like Wingnut Wings. Maybe not as good in terms of the way it's presented in colours and things, but I don't care about that. I want to see some photographs. I want to see these models of the real subject in action. Tell us the history. Make it interesting. Make it something worth buying. Then something you can read. Keep it as a souvenir. Put it amongst your magazine or your book collection. This looks absolutely superb. So, what we've got here is, as you can see, a proper potted history of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Yeah. We've got Admiral Nagumo, who is that's the admiral's whose name I forgot, I couldn't remember, who called off the third wave attack. Nagumo, that's my memory failing there. So we've got a complete, it's all in English here, so we've got a proper history that's, telling about the background. It's got talking about the negotiations here leading up to the attack. You've got the Kaga and the Zuikaku and the Akagi photographs here. Picture of the Zero on the deck, picture of one of the B-17s at Hickam Field that's been badly damaged during the attack. A full chronology of what happened. How the causes of the attack, what led up to it, how the preparations were done. Here's the famous photograph of Ford Island and Pearl Harbor with the Zeros zooming around. If you look very carefully, several Zeros visible there, and you can see torpedoes going off next to the, I think it is the West Virginia, Tennessee, Nevada, Arizona, all visible. And this is wonderful. This is a wonderful thing. The attack itself, the American carriers, why they weren't there, the Zero, and then talking about the individual Zeros, and it gives you a little bit of history, even about the aircraft that they've depicted in the kit. That is absolutely fabulous. Look at these photographs, colour photographs as well. Crash Zero down on Pearl Harbor, Rogers Field, Honolulu Airport, it says. A damaged Val and then a damaged Curtiss P-40 Warhawk. Oh, that is absolutely brilliant. Oh, I'll tell you what. Well, given my chip on my shoulder, if you want to call it that, or mistrust of Eduard, they've just gone a long way to ticking boxes that other people are not doing. So there's something there that's really special. I think that's fantastic what I've just seen. Let's see what the rest of the kit's like. So, we get into it now. Sometimes I find that they don't always go together as well as you would like, but we shall see, That comes later, I guess. So it just shows you your sprue map. Quite a few parts that are not used that are highlighted out in the blue there, as you can see. You've got photo-etched detail, you've got a mask for your canopies and your wheels. It's kind of everything you need to build this nicely is within the kit. And then we start with building up the sides of your cockpit. Lots of little PE parts and detail parts there from the additional set that comes included. You do one side, then you do the other. Lots of control levers, and instruments and switches, etc. Then you've got your pedals going in. You're building your seat up, and you've got PE seat belts. You're attaching it to your bulkhead. Your various levers, etc. I think it's the gear lever actually, so the landing gear. Again, lots of small PE parts, so you better have some good glasses on you for this, or magnifiers. All these panels, like the radio panel going in onto the side. Some very, very good detail here. Lots and lots of parts. It's going to take a while, I'll tell you that. So then you're building up this seat that's now become fixed to the rear bulkhead, putting that into the floor of the cockpit where the stick is, bringing in the two sides with all these instruments, etc., and levers and things on the control panel sides, some of which are going on now. Some of it's Decal, some of it's PE. A lot of multimedia stuff going on here. Bringing all that together, then you've got the actual main instrument panel itself, and you've got obviously a gun sight that's going to have to go on there as well, which I think is this one here. Yeah, this is going to be quite a long job. I think you're going to have to put some hours aside for this. Then you've got your main guns that go in on top of the cowling, the top of the engine. A couple of, are they oxygen bottles? Yes, the oxygen bottles behind the pilot, I think. I think one's fire extinguisher, one's got oxygen bottle. Then you've got your main fuselage and your rudder, and then the sort of top of the cowling of the cockpit there that's coming in, and then you insert that that sort of modular cockpit area with the cannons. So you put it in upside down into the now assembled two halves of the fuselage which you built up. Then we've got the underside of the wing, and you're then going to build up the wheel wells walls. Then you're bringing in the top, down the top wing onto the top of it, putting in the sort of floor, as it were, of the actual wheel bay well. And then again we've got some more, pretty sure these are oxygen canisters again. Should probably used for maybe operating the doors or something, I'm not quite sure. Zero experts among you, please feel free to comment. And of course you've got your ailerons going in there as well. Then we're building up the tail planes. And sorry, one small criticism I would make of Eduard's instructions, I wish they'd put it a bit more bold. It always seems very faint and very finely drawn, which isn't very easy on the eye, I've got to say. But anyway, it's only a small point. Then we've got our armour plating here that goes behind the pilot's head in the cockpit to protect him from rearward shots. Putting on your tail planes, fixing your main fuselage into your wing. Got a PE grill going on there, and then you've got your actuators here for your ailerons. Then we're building up the engine. It's a radial engine, obviously, Mitsubishi radial engine, which looks pretty good, I've got to say. I'd be interested to see what the plastic's like, but that goes in, and then you basically slot it. Oh, I see. Oh, this is interesting. So it looks like it's a finished cowl, but it's very short. It's not. That's just like the inner face of the front bulkhead, if you were, of the engine. And then you build the outer cowl here, which comes in several parts, and they don't want you to glue them, which I think means that you can have them actually fixed open if you wish, I think. It says do not glue, doesn't it? See that? Do not glue. And it's like two cowls, so I think you can probably do a diorama with the cowls open. But you can't, can you? Because that doesn't actually, it has like an inner wall, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to work actually. Interesting. Certainly these cowls could be left open, because I think that would expose the, yeah, I think that would expose the engine or part of it anyway. But you've got this like an inner tube here, like an inner wall flange almost, that goes around the engine, it would seem. But I suppose find out in practice how it goes. And then this entire cowl area just gets attached to the front of the engine. Then you're building up your gear. And here we've got, this is where you're going to use some various bits of PE and decals, and don't forget to use your masks for masking the wheels off. I don't know if it's weight on wheels, I've got a feeling it isn't, judging by the image, but it gives you a clear view of how they should be aligned with their legs here, and the actual leg and the cover, outer cover of the wheel door, so to speak. Then you've got your rear tail wheel going in, and you've got your arrestor hook even in the retracted or the extended position, which is your choice here. And then it gives you some quite helpful diagrams about how the undercarriage should look in terms of its pitch and the sort of rake it should have as well on the aircraft, so that's quite helpful. Then we've got one or two little flaps, starboard flaps, and then you've got your under fuselage drop tank, and then finally you're building up your propeller and spinner and the back plate down here. And a few details like the gun sight, which I mentioned earlier. There's a gun sight to be built up, and that goes on there with some PE parts, and it's slightly offset to the right, as you can see in this diagram. Oops, I just dropped the light off. That wasn't very clever, sorry about that. I think I've been nudging things over there a bit too much. Sorry about that, folks. Then we've got the building up the internal parts of the actual canopy, the sliding canopy. And on the Zero it has this sort of a fixed rear canopy and a sliding central section. So the front and rear are fixed, and then there's like a slider in the middle. Which does look quite nice, I have to say, that's very interesting. So you put that on, and then obviously you've got radio antenna aerial that just goes behind the pilot's headrest there. Bringing on your spinner and prop assembly, pitot head goes on, and then if you want to have the open canopy, which is a different part, you put that on instead. Then it gives you a guide about how to do your masking for both the canopy and the wheels. There. Then that's kind of it. So then we're into a lot of detail about the different colour schemes. So as I said, there's 12 of these, so that's why there's a lot of pages still to go. So I won't quote verbatim word for word, it shows on every page, but you get a nice feel for these schemes here. I do think that they look very, very nice. So the first one is from the Akagi, second one is from the Kaga. Slightly different, they're very subtle, the differences, aren't they, to be fair, just a number and a different stripe at the back. Oops. Trouble with my arm positioning here, there we go, that's better. And then, so that's the first two options, then we've got 3 and 4. Well, we've got the Soryu. This one's got a blue stripe on it. I guess the stripe colour denotes which carrier it's from on the rear fuselage. And then they have a couple of bars on the tail. Apart from that, you've got your meatballs, or rising suns, to be the correct terminology. The Americans call them meatball, didn't they? And then we've got the Hiryu, first wave attack squadron, and again this one has got 2 blue bars at the back. So again, slightly different. So you can definitely tell which carrier it's come from by virtue of the way it's marked up. We've got white bars on the Shokaku, so different again, but otherwise very similar here. And then the Zuikaku has got twin white bars on the fuselage, and again, other than that, very, very similar. Then, gosh, it goes on forever, doesn't it? Then we've got the Zuikaku. This is the one that was on patrol, which is on the first attack wave. So this is providing air cover basically above the actual attack. And then we've got the second wave attack from the Akagi, which again is back to a single red band on the tail on the rear fuse. And then we have Kaga second wave, again Kaga having twin red stripes. Soryu with its single blue stripe, and this time it's the second wave attack. So this is the very risky later missions which we're getting a lot of anti-aircraft fire. A lot of these got brought down. And the Hiryu second wave attack, again twin blue stripes. And then the Shokaku, which has got the single narrow white stripe, and he's doing the combat air patrol again. and he's going to be needed a lot more than the first ones, I think. And then that's it. And then on the back we've got the stencil positions, and there's quite a few actually. So with that in mind, I think we should next look at these decals. Now, I'm just going to zoom out for this. Found this really strange because, you know, as I mentioned, Eduard don't really seem to have ever bothered to explain properly the best way to get the best out of the decals, which I think they should have done. That was a bit of a mistake and has upset a lot of people. From what I read, a lot of people, I was going to say me included, apart from this, I made an exception here. But I'm not keen to buy any of these Eduard kits that have got these new crazy decals that need, you know, to be a rocket scientist to use them. Do a lot of playing around with. That's not helpful to the model. I don't know why they've done that. It's exactly the opposite of what they've done in other respects, you know. But anyway, let's have a look at what we've got. So we have, yeah, we have this. I think this is the new design, so I'm very nervous already. But this is the kind of it's quite a thick, what looks like a thick carrier film, and this is the one we believe is the new one because it's much thicker than normal, and we believe this is on the top. So you slide it on and then you remove this carrier film that is, you can see it quite thick around those red lines, and what you do is you have to remove that after you've got your decals in place. Now I've got to be honest with you, this isn't filling me with much confidence in terms of using them. I'm almost thinking that for all this beautiful set, are you actually going to really, when there's all these stencils, are you really going to faff around like this with all these very complicated decals? And there's two sets of those, by the way, because obviously we have two aircraft, two kits in the set. So there's two of everything basically. Except here, of course, we've got the main decals, and again, yes, I'm pretty sure this is the new style because again, you can see this overly large carrier film around the actual main decal, which is on the top, and you have to remove after. Now, I'm not going to be telling you how to do this, so please don't read into what I've said and follow word for word because I've not done them. I am so nervous. I just haven't got round to. Well, I've not been sufficiently brave to buy an Eduard kit until now recently, but secondly, I don't know for sure. I haven't got experience of using them, so please don't say, oh right, well Peter said. No, you need to, maybe there's a couple of vids on YouTube I think that will show you step by step how to get the best out of them. Definitely worth a look, I think, or take advice from somebody else who's used them, because they're going to be tricky. They're going to be tricky. I mean, the one good thing about these aircraft is you could mask this, fairly easy to mask, just a red stripe or a red, you know, oval, roundel, or a white one, a white stripe or blue stripe. Not actually complicated decals to do yourself. Very tempting that would be for me, you know. When I look at them and I see all this excessive film, it makes me hellishly nervous, I have to be honest. You can see it there, I'm deliberately getting the reflection so you can see the film, how it's much bigger than the decal itself, and therefore this is kind of part of the problem. I mean, they look nicely printed and everything, but it's the usability of them that concerns me, so I'm not going to, that's probably going to lose them a point, or maybe half a point, because I think we're dealing with a rather unproven technology that they've decided to reinvent the wheel. I think that is the biggest problem what Eduard have done here. You know, they're doing such a good job with a lot of things on their kits. Not everything, as I've already alluded to, but there are some areas where they are kind of almost market leader, but this is not one of them. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just don't think that this is something that they should have gone down at all. But anyway, let's just get on with the kit and we'll put this aside for now. So, put that over there, it's safe. We will have a quick look at, so obviously there's two of everything, so we don't need to look at two of everything. We've got mass set, which is sort of self-explanatory, which we know is for the canopies and for the wheels, so we'll put that on one side, we don't need to worry about it too much. Let's have a look at the Photo-etched though, because this is going to be quite an important part of the actual kit. And if I can just get that into a position you can see it properly. I'm not doing a very good job of it at the moment. There we go. Now then. So we've got the instruments, which look, I mean these look really nice, I've got to be honest. Look at that. Can you see those dials for the instruments? They look really nice. You've got pedals, you've got various little levers, switches, instrument panels here. They do look very, very nice. Let's check on the other side. It's the same on the other side, but yeah, that's nice. That's nice. That's going to lift it, isn't it? Very, very well. In fact, I'm going to take them out because I'm not sure that the reflections were doing it any favours, and I think you might feel a little bit cheated. Let's just get it out properly. Now then, that's better. You can see it a little bit clearer now. Yeah. Tora Tora Tora. But the seat belts look nice, don't they? They look really well done. So that's nice. Yeah, very impressed with that. Excellent. Next, let's start with the big several bags here, the resealable bags. That's good. And as I say, there's 2 of everything, so you look at absolutely everything. So fuselage. Let's have a look at the plastic. Now, usually this is where Eduard are absolutely fantastic, and we get really excited about the product, and then we try and build it. And then it goes a bit wrong. Not every time, but sometimes. But this does look nice. So we've got the tailpins. Look at the, as usual, well up to their standard in terms of panel lining and rivets. Look at that. Oh yes, that's really, really nice. Yeah, that's exactly what we would expect. Very similar to their other recent work, isn't it? You have to say that that is very, very nice. Got these cowls here. We've got the clips on them. And you've got your rudder there. Yeah, that's a lovely sprue. Lovely sprue. You got your very front cowl ring there. Whoops, there. Eventually focuses. There we go. So that's that one. Notice that on one of the sprues, the actual one part is broken off. I suspect that's not untypical. Eduard's another criticism that's fair of Eduard generally is that they don't always have them very strongly on the sprue. It has to be said that they do break off rather readily. Anyway, let's look at the wings. So this is the lower wing we're looking at here. But the pan lining and the riveting detail is so fine and beautiful. Look at that. Yeah, that is impressive. Yeah, like that a lot. Very, very crisp finish. Here's the top wing now. Yeah, very, very nicely done by them. Faultless, no flash, no nonsense. And then you've got your ailerons here, which look very crisp. Lots of little fine rivets, and you can see the ribs effect with all the riveting in it. Very, very nice. Can't fault that. Exactly what you'd expect from Eduard, really, for their recent sort of kits. I'm going to pop that to one side and sort it out later. But otherwise we could be here for a while. Now, zoom you out. This is the bag with all the sort of interesting bits in it, so to speak. Let's have a look. Whoops. Okay, now then, again, it's 2 of everything, so we'll just have 1 of each, if you don't mind. Right. I think it's quite nice that you can sort of do 2 kits. I've got to be honest, I'm not a fan of Eduard's double kits, where I think some of them have more than 2, but I think it's a bit crazy. I don't really particularly want 2 of everything, or 3 or 4 of everything. But it is nice in this context when you've got these different squadrons in a big event like Pearl Harbor, and you can represent different attack waves and that kind of thing. but we shall see. Let's have a closer look in at this. So we've got here some of the small parts, including the spinner. Oops, a little bit reluctant on my camera's part there. Here we go, spinners. We've got the drop tanks, bombs. Oh dear, here we go. Sadly going to get dropped on the likes of the Arizona. And the undercarriage, we've got wheels and tyres here, and the legs. And these, now the propeller that is beautiful. That is so, and it's so well conceived, the way that they've attached it. Sprue attachment points well away from the blades. What is there not to like about that? That's excellent. Really nice. Well conceived, thought out properly. Got a couple of very tiny bombs there. What are they? £100 bomb? That's tiny, isn't it? In fact, it needs a bit more zoom, if anything. Can bring it a bit closer. There we go. Small, aren't they? Then we've got the gear door covers and various other small parts. And that's kind of it. Actually, the wheels, I noticed that the actual wheel hubs are very plain, aren't they? Very plain in the design. Okay, so that's that one. And then we have now then engine parts. So where to begin? Here we go, radial engine. Lots and lots of fine parts here. Very, very finely attached on the sprue. Another criticism people do make of Eduard, I don't particularly make this criticism myself, but people say there's too many parts sometimes. And there are a lot of very small parts when it's, it does make the build quite, look at them down here, it does make the build quite long and intensive and laborious when you've got a million tiny parts. Sometimes they do go a bit OTT with that, but they're always beautifully formed. There's no flash. You've got the spars there on the this is the spar that basically forms the wall of the actual landing gear bay well, and then you've got these push rods, I think it's for the engine here. You've got your bulkhead here, goes behind the pilot, and this is this beautiful detail for the side cockpit walls, really crisp. It's very, very sharp. It's beautiful, but rendering of the parts, so many little details that they've got just spot on. It's really beautiful, to be honest. And there's your little arrestor hook. You've got the retracted version or the extended version here and here. Absolutely fantastic, isn't it? Really is. Well, there we go. It just leaves us with the clear parts. Here we go. So obviously there's a twin of this, so we're just going with one of them. Comes in a nice sealable bag, which is quite a good idea. And it isn't on that silly, strange sprue they often do it like a round circle, like a carousel, and all the parts always break off. This seems a bit stronger. Yeah, I'm not sure it's the clearest clear parts I've ever seen. Let's see what you think. Get you in close. They look a little bit, by modern standards, those are not. It's almost like they're frosted. They're not that clear. Clear parts, can you tell? Don't know if you can see on the camera as well as I can. You could probably see better. I say that, and then I see the video and playback and think, blimey, I couldn't see that detail. So actually you're probably seeing more than I am. It's a little bit frosty and a little bit distorty. It's not, you can see it there, look, see what I mean about the sort of slightly crazed sort of finish to it. It's not, yeah, it's not bad, but it's not the best I've ever seen, certainly recently. Look, see what I mean? I'm not that impressed with the clear parts, if I'm brutally honest. I think that's the most disappointing plastic in the kit, if I'm being fair. And the other plastic is beautiful. Just isn't the greatest. It's almost like the mould isn't quite polished properly, to be honest. I'm not sure it's the plastic or if it's the mould, or maybe both. Can we tell? Just looking at these little windscreens here. Can you see that? Quite a lot of sort of distortion, and you know, we've recently had things like the well, with the Tamiya, Tomcat, things like that, and the plastic was absolutely perfect. That's a little bit old school. I don't know. It just check the other one, just to make sure it's not just a rogue one or something. Let's have a look at the second one. See if we can decide. No, it's the same, really. Yeah, so it's the same. It's not bad. It's just not brilliant. You know, it doesn't seem to match the rest of the kit in terms of the finish. It's a little bit misty and a little bit crazy, a little bit distorted, but not so much distortion as the finish. I think of the mould. It's a bit frosty and a bit. Yeah, it looks a bit like it's from 20 years ago or more. So I'm a little bit disappointed with that, actually. Most of the kit I'm delighted with. I love those instructions. With that history thing, yes, please. Please, more of that. That's absolutely what we're after. The very thing that I've been talking about for many, many months. Anyway, what do we think then? In summary, I think that put those in here so it doesn't fall over. It does that. Right. I think it's great that they've done this. I think the timing is absolutely perfect for the anniversary of Pearl Harbor. I personally haven't got a Zero in any scale apart from one of my collectible Matchbox, which I wouldn't build anyway. It's too much of a rarity, especially the one I've got is mint in every respect. But so I needed a Zero anyway, so I got two for the price of one, you might say. I'm a bit disappointed with those clear parts. I think that they are not up to the standard that we've seen in other recent kits that have just come out. This is a 2021 new tool. Well, you wouldn't know it from that. I don't think that's very good at all. I think that Eduard need to go back and have a look at their tooling, because I think they need to clean them up. I think it's that rather than the plastic. But the rest of it is stunning. I mean, the detail. I just have this reservation. Does it go together properly? It isn't a cheap kit at £50, I'll say, but you can argue it's like £25 per kit, so that it doesn't sound bad, does it really, I suppose? £25 per Zero. So in summary, on the downside, the clear parts definitely are not up to scratch, I don't think. The rest of it is absolutely stunning. And the decals. The decals and the clear parts are the things that are holding this one back. And I think the decal's going to hold Eduard back a little bit until they basically just go back to using cartograph. I mean, that's the answer and the instant solution for them. So I don't know why they don't just do that, to be honest. So I'm going to give it, I want to give it 9, but I feel that's maybe a little bit generous. I know it sounds like I'm splitting hairs, but 8.7 I think is kind of fair. I'd like to have given it more. If the clear parts had been good, I'd have given it 9, 9.5. But they're not. I don't know why. I just don't really get that. They're just not particularly clear, you know, compared to other stuff we've been looking at. They look a bit misty and they look a bit old school to me. But anyway, so I think that's where I'm at. I think 8.7, a slightly unusual number, but I think it does represent what I've seen. What it builds like is a completely another story, as we know, and I've had this before. When I got that Mirage 3, I thought it's just beautiful. I so wanted to build it, and I got cracking at Christmas, New Year, about 4 years ago. What a nightmare it was. So, I don't know, I'm not saying that's going to be a nightmare at all. And it's brand new, latest tool. I would hope that it goes together well. I didn't see anything obvious, you know, in the wings or anything that would... we've had a lot of issues in other kits like the Tempest where the wings have got these funny lips on them, and there was no proper location points for the gear legs, things like that. Didn't see any of that, but I've gone through it quite quickly. I know I've been on here for a while, but we have got 2 kits and a lot of stuff to get through, but nothing was obvious. So I can only judge it on what I see in the box, and I say 8.7 out of 10, which I think is pretty good. I think they get 10 out of 10 for their instructions with that history. I think that's beautiful. The fact they've given you all these schemes, but if only they'd used cartograph decals instead of these new ones, which look so weird, and they give issues, and they mean that people have to think about it more than they want to or need to. And it makes it complicated, you know. At a stage of the build where actually you want to get it finished, don't you? Especially if it's got relatively straightforward decals in terms of the colourings and the markings. You don't want to be faffing around with this top film thing. So, you know, I think that the 8.7 I've given it is maybe even generous. I think that it could have easily been a 10. You know, the grey plastic and the instructions, it's looking like a 10 out of 10. And then they sort of spoil it with some slightly dodgy clear parts and these decals. But that's where I'm at. Anyway, that's it. We're done for today. Just want to say it's obviously the anniversary of Pearl Harbor. We're on the eve of the anniversary, so it was the perfect time for this one to come out. Hope you enjoyed it. You know, it was a very heartbreaking event, Pearl Harbor attack, certainly for the United States, and an attack on freedom, and another one, you know, that was part of World War II. But it was the catalyst to the ultimate victory, and, you know, the catalyst to the survival of freedom in the world. So in that respect, it ultimately created a good situation in the end. And obviously we remember all those veterans that are still alive from Pearl Harbor and the Pacific Campaign, and all other soldiers, sailors and airmen who fought for their countries in all wars. So we raise a glass to you this Christmas and say, you know, thank you for your service, and may we not have those kind of conflicts again. Anyway, enough from me. Thanks a lot. Hope you'll give me better than 8.7. Hope you give me 10 out of 10 with a thumbs up. Please stay tuned, because there'll be other videos coming along in the not too distant future. We would recommend that you subscribe to the channel, and if you haven't done that, click on subscribe. If you have already, don't forget to ding that notification bell, and we will then give you early notice of anything that's coming up soon, and you'll be one of the first people to know about it. In the meantime, between now and the next time we meet, if it's not before Christmas, I'll wish you a happy Christmas now. Probably see you before then, but in the meantime, please all look after yourselves. Thanks a lot for all your time, for watching. Take care, and bye for now.